Hello again, everyone. Today we're delving into the meaning of Babylon in the book of Revelation. At the end of this video, we have a big announcement for a drawing for subscribers. So now let's get into this video. Have you ever pondered about the term Babylon within the context of the church? What does it truly symbolize? In the vast ocean of biblical narratives, the term Babylon often emerges as a significant symbol. It's an enigmatic term that weaves a complex tapestry of power, dominion, and spiritual ambition. But what does Babylon truly represent within the church? In the early stages of biblical interpretation, Babylon was perceived as a symbol of power and dominion, a church striving to control the world through the manipulation of holy matters. It was the embodiment of a spiritual entity that sought to exert its influence over the world using the sacred elements of the church as its tools. The term Babylon paints a vivid picture of a church that seeks to claim authority over the souls of men, asserting the power to determine salvation. Its ambition knows no bounds, extending its reach towards heaven and hell, aiming to make it its own. In the early days, such a church may appear to be zealous for the Lord, for the Word, for love and faith, and especially for the salvation of men. This zeal, however, is not as innocent as it appears. Hidden beneath the surface of this fervor is the smoldering desire for dominion. As time progresses, this hidden desire breaks forth, and the holy elements of the church become mere mediums for this growing dominion. In this process, the sacred becomes the profane. As dominion becomes the end goal, the holy elements of the church are applied to serve this purpose. The salvation of souls, once the realm of the divine, is now ascribed to the authority of the church. The church, in essence, appropriates the Lord's divine power for itself. That Babylon is such can be seen fully from the descriptions and representations of it in the prophets and especially in Daniel. First, from the statue of King Nebuchadnezzar, in Daniel. There appeared to King Nebuchadnezzar in a dream, a statue standing opposite the king. Its head was of good gold, its breast and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of brass, its legs of iron, and its feet part of iron and part of clay. Afterwards, a stone was cut out, not by hands, which smote the statue upon its feet, which were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. And then the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold were broken in pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, so that the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. But the stone that smote the statue became a great rock. Dan 2:31-35. From the interpretation of this dream by Daniel, it is clear that it describes the state of the church that becomes Babylon, from its beginning to its end. It is Babylon that is described, for these things were seen by the king of Babylon in a dream, and he saw a statue opposite to him. Also Daniel said plainly to the king, "Thou art its head, which is gold." Dan 2:38. The seed of man signifies the divine truth, thus the truth of the word. And by this no coherence is affected because at the end of the church it is falsified by application to the worship of men. The destruction of this church is described by the stone break in pieces, all parts of the statue. Stone signifies the divine truth, and the rock which the stone became signifies the Lord as to the divine truth. Its destruction is the last judgment. The new church that will then be established by the Lord is described by these words. The God of the heavens shall make a kingdom to arise which shall not perish for ages, and his kingdom shall not be committed to another people. It shall break in pieces and consume all those kingdoms, but itself shall stand for ages. Dan 2:44. This perversion of the holy, this profanity under the guise of sanctity, is the essence of Babylon. So we see that Babylon started as a symbol of power and dominion, but what happened as time went on? As we delve deeper into the evolution of Babylon, we uncover the profound transformation of this symbol from a beacon of holy power to a symbol of spiritual corruption. As the sands of time shifted, so did the meaning and implications of Babylon within the church. What began as a beacon of faith and devotion soon found itself shrouded in the shadows of corruption and dominion. In the early days, the church, synonymous with Babylon, was fervent in its zeal for the Lord, for love, faith, and above all, the salvation of mankind. The holy fire of devotion was pure, the intentions untainted. But within this fervor, a subtle ember of domination began to smolder. As the years rolled on, the church grew, and with it, dominion. This dominion, once hidden, started to break forth, slowly revealing its presence. The holy things of the church, once the means to fulfill the noble aims of love and faith, subtly began to transform into tools for dominion. Now, the church under the guise of Babylon was not just seeking to influence the souls of men, but also to control them, claiming authority to save whomsoever they willed. This shift was insidious, almost imperceptible. The holy things of the church were no longer for the Lord, but for the church itself. The end was no longer salvation, but dominion. It is to be known in general that every church in its beginning is like a virgin, but in process of time it becomes a harlot. For it enters gradually into a life of evil, and thus embraces a doctrine of falsity, as gradually it begins to love self and the world. And then from being a church it becomes either Babylon or Philistia, Babylon with those who love self above all things, and Philistia with those who love the world above all things. For as these two loves increase, the men of the church adulterate and falsify the goods and truths of the word, which is from being a virgin to become a harlot. The first church after the flood would have become Babylon if the Lord by the dispersion of their religion had not prevented the attempt, represented and signified by the tower that was to reach even to heaven, which the posterity of Noah began to build. See respecting this in Genesis 11:1-9. It having thus been shown from the word what is signified in general, and in particular by Babylon, we are now prepared to pass on to the explanation of those things which are foretold in this and the following chapter about Babylon and its destruction. The church began to appropriate all the Lord's divine power, as though it had been given to them by Him. The holy things of the church, once sacred and revered, were now being used to further personal gains and dominion. The church, once a symbol of faith and devotion, was now a symbol of power and control. And as the church continued to grow, so did its dominion. It began to stretch its influence over not just the souls of men, but over heaven and hell as well, seeking to make it their own. The church had transformed into Babylon, and Babylon had become a symbol of corruption, of dominance, of the perversion of the holy. And thus, Babylon transformed from a symbol of power to a symbol of corruption and dominion over the souls of men. But how exactly did Babylon evolve into this symbol of dominance and corruption? Imagine a beautiful garden in its first bloom, vibrant and full of life. This represents the early days of Babylon, a time of fervor and devotion, a time when the people were filled with a zeal for the Lord, for His word, and for the salvation of mankind. But within this garden, unseen and unnoticed, lay a seed of ambition and desire for control. As time passed, this seed began to sprout, its roots delving deep into the fertile ground of the church, siphoning off the nourishment intended for the growth of love and faith. The desire for dominion began to replace the initial zeal, subtly, yet surely. The holy things of the church, once held sacred and inviolable, began to be seen not as ends in themselves but as means to an end, dominion. The fire of dominance, once hidden, now began to blaze forth, consuming all in its path. The church, which was once a beacon of light and hope, began to be used as a tool for control. The leaders, who were once humble servants, began to claim authority over the salvation of souls, as if this divine power had been given to them by the Lord Himself. The holy things of the church were no longer used to serve the Lord, but to serve the personal ambitions of those in power. They were manipulated and distorted to justify this newfound authority, to make the pursuit of power seem holy and righteous. The leaders started to believe that they had the right, even the duty, to dominate, not just the world but also heaven and hell. In this way, the once radiant garden of Babylon was transformed into a barren wasteland, a symbol of how the holy things of the church can be perverted for personal gain. So, Babylon became a symbol of how the holy things of the church can be perverted for personal gain. But what happens when Babylon reaches its peak? What does it mean for the church and its holy matters? As we've seen, Babylon is not a place but a state of mind, a condition of the human spirit that seeks dominion. It begins innocuously enough. The first steps towards Babylon might even be taken with a sense of zeal for the Lord, for the Word, for love and faith, and especially for the salvation of men. But hidden within this zeal is a spark of ambition, of desire for control. And over time, as this spark is fed by the fuel of power and authority, it grows into a flame that, if left unchecked, can consume everything in its path. This is the transformation of Babylon. The holy things of the church, once used as a means to express love and faith, become a tool for dominion. Salvation of souls, once attributed to the Lord's divine power, is now claimed as a result of their own authority, and this is where the perversion begins. Every good becomes a tool for control. Every truth gets twisted to fit the narrative of power. The holy things of the church are no longer sacred instruments of faith, but weapons in the quest for dominion. The church, which was once a refuge for the faithful, a beacon of love and a symbol of unity, becomes a fortress of power, a stronghold of control, and the holy things of the church, once revered and respected, are now profaned. This is the peak of Babylon, a place where the pursuit of dominion has eclipsed the pursuit of faith, where power has replaced love as the driving force, and where the holy has been profaned in the name of control. This transformation, this perversion, this profanity is not an overnight event. It's a gradual slide, a slow descent that can be so subtle, so insidious, that it's often not noticed until it's too late. And thus, at its peak, Babylon represents the ultimate profanity of the holy. So, we've traced the evolution of Babylon from power to corruption, but what does it mean for us today? Well, Babylon isn't just an ancient city or a historical conundrum. It's a powerful symbol, a metaphor that resonates deeply in our own time. Babylon represents any institution or individual who seeks to use the sacred for personal gain and dominance. It's a stark warning against the corruption of the holy, and an urgent call for vigilance and integrity. In our modern world, Babylon can be seen in the guise of institutions and leaders who claim to possess the ultimate truth, promising salvation, yet using their position for personal advantage. This isn't limited to religious organizations alone, but can extend to political, social, and even corporate entities. The implications for the church today are profound. Babylon challenges the church to continually examine its motives, to ensure that it remains focused on its true mission, to serve, to love, to bring hope and healing, not to dominate or control. It's a call to humility, to remember that the authority to save souls belongs to the divine alone, not to any human institution. For spiritual seekers, Babylon serves as a reminder to be discerning, to question and probe, to seek truth rather than easy answers. It's a caution against blind faith in charismatic leaders or institutions that promise salvation while seeking power and control. In a broader sense, Babylon is a symbol of the potential for corruption inherent in all human institutions. It's a reminder of the need for checks and balances, for transparency and accountability, to prevent the abuse of power. But above all, Babylon is a call to integrity, to the courage to stand against the misuse of the sacred, to resist the allure of power and dominance, and to remain steadfast in the pursuit of truth, love, and justice. In the end, Babylon serves as a stark reminder of the potential for the corruption of the holy, a lesson we must never forget. As we reflect on Babylon, we gain a deeper understanding of its profound significance. This concept, so deeply rooted in the history of our faith, serves as a mirror, reflecting not just the past, but also the potential future of any spiritual institution. Babylon began as a beacon of faith, a symbol of devotion to the Lord and His Word. But as time passed, this initial zeal was overshadowed by a thirst for dominance. This is where the essence of Babylon lies, in the transformation of holy institutions into tools for worldly power. This power corrupted the purity of Babylon, turning the holy into the profane. As authority was claimed over the souls of men, the divine power of the Lord was appropriated. Salvation, once the divine gift of the Lord, was now a bargaining chip, used to exert control and dominion. But let's not just look at Babylon as a historical or biblical concept. Its significance extends far beyond the ancient texts. It serves as a cautionary tale for spiritual seekers today. It reminds us that the path to the divine is not one of dominance or control, but of humility and service. Babylon teaches us that the holy institutions of the church are not means to an end, but the end in itself. They are not tools for personal gain, but pathways to spiritual growth. And when these institutions are used for power or control, they lose their sanctity, they become profane. Just as many televangelists, evangelical and Protestant leaders today have turned the Lord's holy word profane. With their greed of man-made doctrines such as the seed faith message, the prosperity gospel, and the end of the world, and rapture fear they continue to proclaim. In our spiritual journey, it's vital to remember this lesson from Babylon. In our devotion, there must be no place for dominance, for control, or for personal gain. As we journey on our spiritual path, let Babylon remind us of the importance of purity and sincerity in our devotion to the divine. We will be delving into this and more subjects in the book of Revelation and other biblical subjects as we have been. Please check out our other videos. We will be having a drawing for five $100 Amazon gift certificates when we reach the 1,000 mark of subscribers. And if you like this video, please click the like button. And if you click the subscribe button, please say, I subscribed. The comments below. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.